Derek, how would you describe George Harrison?
We're very dissimilar in some ways. He drives fast cars. I don't hold a driving license. He doesn't know anything about
Labour Party, and I don't like them.
He doesn't like politics. I love opera. He can't stand people who make those noises. But, I mean...
Apart from that, we get on great.
You're great friends.
Yeah, very
Well, it
best
takes all kinds to make an interview.
But
If you don't
There's a fog upon LA, and it's getting very late. You see, George Harrison's friend and publicist Derek Taylor is getting lost in the haze. George Harrison's business companion, who is now disoriented within the Los Angeles Canyon, leaves his poor George trying to stay awake at a house he rented on Blue Jay Way. Blue Jay Way is a real place in the Hollywood Hills, you see, and belongs to Ludwig Gerber, who manages one jazz singer named Peggy Lee. On vacation with his wife, who had already gone off to bed, George was knackered after his flight, but promised Derek Taylor he'd stay up for him instead. And many years later, contemplating the friend he lost for a moment in the smog, George Harrison had this to say about the night he spent at Blue Jay Way in the fog. Derek Taylor got held up. He rang and said he'd be late. I told him on the phone the house was in Blue Jay Way. He said he'd find it okay. So I waited and waited. There was a fog and it got later and later. To keep myself awake just as a joke to pass the time while I waited, I wrote a song about waiting in Blue Jay Way. There was a little Hammond organ in the corner of this house I hadn't noticed until then. And George wrote Blue Jay Way while waiting for his friend. George made his way to the small organ. It was called the Hammond S6 and was an entry-level version. Like an accordion, it had a section for chord buttons, 96 to be exact, 37 full-size keys to create songs, tunes, and that. While George wrote his feelings into sounds, the little organ amplified everything his fingers pressed down, and Blue Jay Way was played for the first time hauntingly through the organ's vacuum tube-based circuitry. They say musicians keep normal hours, 9 to 5 and utterly boring. Although that's true, and they sleep when they do, it's more like 9 a.m. to 5 in the morning. And although George Harrison wanted to go to bed, he did the right thing and waited for his friend instead. And in the end, though George was jet-lagged and in disarray, this faithful evening gave us Blue Jay Way. The lyrics in this song, weakly screaming, "Please don't be very long," perfectly gives the feeling of being lonely and not feeling so fine. The longing and surreal music always sends a shiver down my spine. A distant call to a friend who was led astray on a lonely, dark, and foggy road on his drive to Blue Jay Way. And to all the subscribers who have stuck with me throughout this year, I wanted to tell you thank you, and I hold you all very dear. You see, there's so many fun things to do and so little time. For heaven's sakes, I'm doing this entire video in rhyme. But if there's a person out there that you love and you want to tell them you care when it's right or when it's wrong, just say these words and they will know. Don't be long. Don't be long.